two main types of food that contain glucose are starchy and sweet foods. So put very simply, if you reduce the quantity of those in your diet, so if you reduce, bread, pasta, rice, potatoes, and you reduce also sweet foods, desserts, sugar, fruit juices, fruit products, you're going to reduce the glucose spikes in your body. But then it's really important to not sort of replace those with unhealthy processed foods that might keep your glucose level steady but are really high in fat, for example. So the one place, Jonathan, that I think it's actually really, really valuable and important to change what you're eating, and this is the place with the biggest bang for its buck, is breakfast. So at breakfast, if you're able to switch from eating sweet and starchy foods to eating savory foods based around protein, this is going to have a humongous impact on how you feel for the rest of the day. As Sarah mentioned, it's going to control your glucose dips and spikes for the rest of the day as well. So that's the only hack where I really encourage people to truly change what they're eating, going from sweet to savory.
Jessie, some of what you're suggesting here is at odds with what people are told about whether they have their carbohydrate in the morning or afternoon. So I'd just love your opinion on this. So we've seen, again, in our ZooPredict studies, but also there's been other published research on this that shows that you have better glycemic control in the morning. And so, many people might be aware that if you do want to have carbohydrates, have it in the morning, because we see a lower blood sugar response in the morning compared to if you consume it later in the day. And we see this with our own research, although that it's very variable between individuals. And so this is something I often advise people who are worried. But now that's at odds with that. So how do we not give contradictory advice?
I think one of the problems with that is that you're looking at it in a vacuum, right? So you're looking at cookie at 9 a.m. versus cookie at 6 p.m. And it says, 9 a.m. cookie is better. But you're not necessarily thinking about what the impact of a 9 a.m. cookie is going to have on the rest of your day. And that the 9 a.m. cookie is going to create an 11 a.m. crash and an 11 a.m. craving, and you're going to be hungrier for the rest of the day. So I believe that the benefits of eating, your carbs earlier in the day do not outweigh the benefits of having a savory breakfast. So I personally have seen, and I recommend, you have a savory breakfast. And if you do want to eat carbs, actually, or something very sweet, for example, a cookie, best time to do that is as dessert after lunch or dinner. Because I believe the 9 a.m., 6 p.m. time of day thing is just less impactful than using the food order and having a savory breakfast. But there's a lot of different pieces of advice, and it can be confusing to put them all together for sure.
Yeah, that's why I just wanted to get your opinion on that. I think that's really helpful because I want to make sure, we do other podcasts where we'll talk about time of day. So it's really important we make sure that we're giving, unified advice.
So I think we have time for one final hack, Jessie, which you touched on a little bit, which is about exercise.
Yes. Okay. So Sarah mentioned in the beginning of the podcast that, glucose is your body's source of energy. And your muscles specifically are really happy to use glucose if you need them to contract. So a very simple hack is after your meals, use your muscles for 10 minutes. This can be walking, it can be dancing, it can be whatever, folding your laundry, cleaning your apartment, whatever you want to do for 10 minutes, because as you exercise and contract your muscles, they will soak up glucose from your bloodstream to power themselves. And as a result, the glucose won't accumulate as much in your bloodstream, but rather will be used for energy directly. So within an hour after the end of a meal, just get up, move for 10 minutes. You'll see a big impact on your glucose levels and on how you feel.
Jonathan, there's one other hack that we did in our ZooPredict studies that is actually one that Jessie has as well in her book. So I would quite like to mention that. And this is about food combinations. So we had individuals on one day having just white bread for breakfast. Then on another day, layering onto their white bread some cheese and some spread. And so each day they were consuming the identical amount of carbohydrate, but one day they had the added fat and protein. And we saw a significantly lower increase in blood glucose levels when they layered on the fat and protein. And I know this is something that you talk about as well, Jessie, and about how you combine your foods.
Yeah, I talk about don't leave your carbs naked. So always put some clothing on your carbs, so protein, fat, or fiber. And so anytime you're eating something starchy like white bread or something sweet, make sure you add protein, fat, or fiber, because that way the glucose from the starchy or the sweet food won't hit your bloodstream as quickly. And as a result, you'll get a smaller spike. Now, there's a little caveat to this because, we mentioned just add some